What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Stocks by the Numbers, and today I wanted to do a quick update video for a company that I know is very popular, was getting a lot of attention. Earnings coming out tomorrow. A lot of people really keeping an eye on this one. Let's get into it. Name of the company, STEM Inc., ticker symbol STEM, right here on the New York Stock Exchange. Stock today up to $3.99, up 19 cents, and even 5% on the day. Pulled back a couple of cents here in the aftermarket. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so first of all, it has been pulling back a little bit. That's inside this wedge. I'll get to that in a second. But right here, it's been selling off for, I don't know what, like the last 2 weeks or something from the last time I looked at it. This light blue and this other light blue were the original top and bottom trend lines that I drew, right? Because see how this candle comes down, but you can see that it closed here a little bit higher. So sometimes I see that's what makes drawing some of these trend lines a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes, and I can appreciate the fact that some of you may struggle with this, and I struggle myself sometimes, right? I drew this initial trend line going off of really like this bottom and this bottom, right? Drawing this trend line across, and as we can see, it of course has broken that trend line, but it has been pulling back differently following this other trend line. Right? So this is why sometimes it may be silly, but sometimes you might have to draw out like 6 or 7 lines to show you moving forward in the next couple of months. Okay, this is the lowest it can go. This is like the middle range that it might go. This is where it might rally to and it might reject. If it breaks out, it's going to get up back to this trend line. You know what I'm saying? So don't be afraid to draw out all these trend lines from the highs and the lows like you see me do here, and try to just keep an eye on some of these patterns, have an idea of what some of these patterns mean, and then of course we can go back and forth and discuss it together, and we can formulate a strategy for you if it's worth you taking a position. But I wanted to get into this new low here, right? If we go from this low to that low of that candle and we continue it out, now we zoom in here and we can see that the stock is almost coming down to this low here, this orange. It looks like it's about 3.5, as we see here, about 352. So that's why, it pulled back yesterday and then bounced up and tried to get back. I know it's hard to tell. I have a lot of indicators going on, but you can see it's been selling off and fighting on this blue trend line, and then it broke, and today it popped back up and tried to retest and get back above that blue trend line. Now that blue trend line, as you see, was the initial trumpet pattern that we drew out the last time we looked at the stock. And what I tell you guys is that trumpet pattern, that widening megaphone, see how it widens and it doesn't come to a point like this one down here? See, that tells you that it's still undetermined. So that's why I said it could go up or it could go down, and as you see, it has been pulling back. The company is posting earnings tomorrow, looking for estimates of a loss of 23.5 cents per share off of revenue of $62.7 million. In my opinion, I think they're going to beat on the revenue side. They may even beat on the profitability side, but the revenue there is $62 million. Just going back the last couple of quarters, as we see, $155 million, even though they missed. But here, almost $100 million. And then back here, as we see, $67 million. So aside from this quarter 1 year ago, they've been above $60 million for the last 3 quarters in a row, right? So if they follow this trajectory, they reported $41 million this time last year. So now estimates are $60 million. So if the company, again, continues its climb on the revenue side, you may see, like 68, 72, 75 million come in for revenue. Now, again, the profitability side is still undetermined. However, in my opinion, I do think the revenue is going to be strong. And what we're seeing here is, so going back to the drop here, March 29th, and then we can see the slight rally back up to April 3rd, and then it's been just declining down in this channel. And if we draw these trend lines out here, you can see we have basically a falling wedge, a descending wedge, which technically is a bullish pattern. See how I put our little green arrow here? So this is pulling back in this tight little wedge pattern going right into earnings. So now, in my opinion, one of 2 things are going to happen. Either, well, one of 3 things could happen, but, just stick with me. So either A, this could be just a false pattern, and it could just stay in this channel and pull back and hit new lows of the high 340s or 350 if these earnings come in light. Or they can break it out regardless because it's in the wedge, so we could be up, tomorrow, big, coming out of this wedge, and then obviously if earnings are crappy, they're going to pull it back down into the low trend line here, this orange trend line. Obviously, if earnings are good, it will most likely pop out of this wedge and continue to run back up here. I think 588 I think is really doable. I really do. Even though it seems like a large percentage jump, again, that's where the stock was really before we started this pattern just a couple of weeks ago. So getting back to about 6, it really isn't too crazy. Plus, again, if they follow this revenue trajectory and they come in and say, hey, listen, we're still not extremely profitable, maybe the loss widened a little bit, but hey, you estimated 62 million, we came in with like 76 million, so obviously the business is growing, and give us some time and it's only going to get better. So if they come out with that, or maybe if they raise full year guidance or something, obviously you're looking for that positive catalyst. But either way, I do think that the stock is going to be up tomorrow. I'd say minimum retesting that top trend line here of the wedge, looking like maybe the low 4s. So you might have a nice pop tomorrow. But again, a company like this, a situation like this, it does all come back to the earnings. I know you guys want a clear-cut, dry black and white picture, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's really not. We do have the technicals in our favor. Again, the numbers look good on paper coming down here, even though the EPS side has been struggling for the last couple of quarters. Look at that growth in revenue. Can't be denied. And for the year, again, 363 million. We have a market cap of about 600 million and change. So that's why a lot of people may say it's fair valued. And if these earnings come in like shit, they're going to ride it down to the bottom trend line and have it make new lows. 372, it'll definitely go lower than that, in my opinion. Into the 40s, probably, into the 340s, if they come up short. However, if everything goes according to plan, again, see this nice big green arrow, boom. And also, if they miss, I have a feeling that this is what some of these arrows are. I have a feeling that it may slightly break out of this wedge and try to retest this trend line here, but they will most likely pull it back to new lows and then flatten it out. And then as you see these two trend lines meeting up, this is when they might break it out again. And as we see, that's around like June. So if it's a crappy quarter, it might take a month before this stock continues to rock and roll again, and we can talk about potentially adding to the position here at new lows and setting up and getting ready for next quarter's earnings. However, again, it does look pretty good, and again, I don't really condone earnings plays, but if I was betting on STEM here, I'd probably bet that they go higher and they come in with some healthy revenue. That's just my opinion. Don't take it to the bank. Switching over here to stock charts, as we see, we drew out our Bollinger Bands, and you can see we just hit that bottom Bollinger Band and also the other trend line we looked at. So boom, we had a little bit of a pop today. MACD just steadily rising, almost like gearing up for an explosion. And look at the RSI too. Look, excuse me, just look at how flat and just how like quiet it's been, right? It's almost like this entire stock is gearing up and getting ready to explode after this earnings report. So again, may have a nice update tomorrow going into earnings, and you want healthy numbers because you're really going to see an explosion. And again, very quickly, back to the mid-Bollinger Band, 454. I think that's easy. And even climbing to the top Bollinger Band, 535 isn't a stretch. We have our 50-day moving average here on the daily is a little over 6. And again, this first fib here that we're looking at, 588, that's on the 1 year. That's the 1 year fib of 588. Again, that's where it started in this wedge. So can easily get back to around $6 in my opinion, coming off a good beat. But the RSI, it's all lining up. It's all lining up. Look at the RSI in the weekly too, sub 30. Massive consistent red candles here, just in a massive sell-off. And you can even see too, see how it like drops heavily and then slowly like begins to tighten up and have like shorter and shorter and shorter ranges. So that's what I mean. Like even looking at it without going to trading view, you can see that it's in like this tight downward arrow, right? And it's getting ready for that explosion. The MACD has been just pulling back ever so slightly here week after week, but again, you had the pop today, so it does look like it's going to curl, but you're waiting on those earnings. You need these earnings to be good, and then the MACD will cross, it will break out of the wedge, it will look for the next fib, it'll look for the next pivot point. You know what I'm saying? It will begin to start moving. Unfortunately, it's really all about earnings with this stock right now. And listen, again, like I said in the original video, I personally do like the idea of the company. They're starting to bring revenue in. Overall, I like the stock, right? And I'm sure a lot of you who view the video agree, right? A lot of you may own some shares. You may, have a big position or a small position in STEM. And chances are it's more for the long term, right? So again, in the short term here, yeah, it might suck because you bought it at 6, now it's down to 4, and I'm telling you it could hit new lows maybe of 340. Yeah, it's going to suck. But remember, you're buying it more than likely for the long term. So, like I always say, if you do happen to have the liquidity, don't be afraid to add on the way down. Because remember, it might be a rough quarter here tomorrow, and the stock might be volatile and a little rocky for the next couple of weeks. However, overall, the company is growing, right? We looked at some of the earnings reports. Revenue started off 20 million, 40 million. Then they're bringing in quarters 100 million, 155 million, right? So the company is growing. We know this. So if they have a rough quarter here, again, in the short term, I know it's going to suck, but you're going to get it back in the long term. As we see here on the weekly, we have a pivot point down here at 319. That seems pretty damn low. I really don't think they're going to take it that low. However, again, it does come back to the earnings, but I feel more confident in like that 340, 350 level that we looked at earlier there on those trend lines. I just think that's more realistic. And look at this. On the daily, look at that. Next support level coming down is 351, right? And then we come back over here, look. If I say it just pulls back to the bottom, look at the right side of the screen, the black number, 351, right? So that may be your low, right around 350, maybe a couple of cents below if they break it down, 345, 342. But in the long term, I like it, and even in the short term, I like it. Anyone who's stepping in now, tomorrow, going into earnings, I really wish you well. I hope it works out well for you, and I hope they annihilate estimates. And same thing for you long-term holders as well. I'm sure a lot of you people have been involved with the stock for a while. So now having it, come down into the 4s and into the 3s now, I know it must be very stressful. However, again, you're buying a decent company with growing revenue, so, get ready for the earnings tomorrow. And I really do hope they post some decent numbers for you guys, because I know a lot of people are involved. I know it's a pretty popular stock, so I really do wish all of you the best of luck moving forward. But I just wanted to do this quick update video because I know people were asking for it. And of course, I spotted this little descending wedge here, and I just wanted to draw out some potential outcomes that we can have within the next day or two, or even week or two, month or two moving forward. So I'm sure you guys appreciate that, but I'll end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop them down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. If you'd like, you can join the Discord. That's in the description. Come in, BS a little bit, make a special request. I'll try to get to any and every symbol you guys ask me to. But moving forward, more importantly, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, and they're volatile, and they're uncertain. So I want to wish everyone success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good day.